are the fields outside Batavia, Illinois. Gorgeous lake to look at it. And as we speak, underground, we're having about 10 million proton-antiproton collisions occurring every second. It's been working for 20 years. And every day we basically push the boundaries of what's known. It's the chocolate factory. We love it.
What goes on beneath these fields, in the Teletron, are some of the most violent collisions in the universe. Deep underground in a full-mile vacuum.
Hello, you're through to Pegasus Lifestyle Management. How can I help?
They smash together.
Your beautiful new aircraft is waiting at our nearest airfield. We hope you're very happy, sir.
The aim is to find among the debris of these collisions the elementary particles of reality, tiny and indestructible. But there's just one hitch with this dramatic method.
When you collide a single proton with a single antiproton, and you create this point of energy, out of a single collision, you can actually generate hundreds of particles, hundreds of different particles that one, as a physicist, needs to try to identify.
Working out which of these are elementary is a problem that's defined particle physics for over 60 years and has required an extraordinary coming together of theory and experiment. The problem started with atoms, once thought to be the only elementary particles. When experimenters first broke into them, they discovered even smaller bits inside, electrons and neutrons and protons. But when they tried to smash protons up, they encountered a different kind of problem. All particles need high energies to wrench them apart, which meant building bigger and bigger machines. But what came out of these fabulous feats of engineering was a big surprise. To the experimenters' delight, the first proton collisions produced not just a handful of new particles, but hundreds. And when it came to identifying them, they realized they needed help. To work out what was going on, the experimenters turned to theoreticians, the maths geniuses who solve physics problems with the pure power of thought. This is Professor Frank Wilczek, a Nobel Prize-winning theoretical physicist.
Just fine. Got a collection of whoopie pies and food.
He lives in Cambridge, Massachusetts. But he comes out to the beautiful countryside of New Hampshire to do his thinking. Wilczek is one of the key architects of our current best description of reality, the Standard Model of Elementary Particles. This model is a detailed description of the basic building blocks of matter and the forces that bind them.
Hello, this is Morse Mutual Insurance. I can do that.
When the experiments were actually done, there was a big shock, because what happened was people found that when they just collided two protons really hard together, out came totally new and unexpected particles, like K mesons, omega baryons, pi mesons, electrons, neutrinos, other mesons. They ran out of names because the Greek alphabet is only so big.
There was such a bewildering variety of these baryons and mesons that together they became known as the particle zoo. A whole new layer of reality had been discovered, but the question no one could answer was, which ones were elementary?
They were discovered experimentally with no underlying theoretical understanding of what was happening. So the theorists who wanted to get down to a simple description of nature thought they were ready to almost close the book on the laws of nature, were totally stymied and had to go back to the drawing board.
Faced with having to explain these unexpected particles, the theorists tried to come up with a simple and beautiful solution. They wondered if the zoo would make sense if it were fewer, more basic units.
Let's make some money.
They call
The
this
goods
new
are in
set
the
of
truck.
particles
The truck goes to the point on your GPS, and the funds
altogether
go
6
into our
quadrants were
account.
described by the theory.
It's all simple
Up and
if you
down
don't get
quarks,
ambushed on the
strange
way.
and charm,
Good luck.
and bottom and top. At first, no one believed they were real. Then hints of them began to show up, and before long, these imaginary particles were actually discovered, one by one, until the theory hit a roadblock. The top quark was still missing. Either they hadn't found it yet, or it didn't exist. An unthinkable proposition. So together the theorists and the experimenters decided to take a gamble. They invested billions of dollars in a new class of accelerator, massively more powerful than anything that had gone before. By 1990, Jacobo Königsberg had joined the hunt for the top quark. He had at his disposal the biggest toy in particle physics, the shiny new teletron, and a beautiful theory to guide him. All eyes were on Fermilab. Jacobo's team were looking for something so small it had no discernible size. They didn't know its mass, and if it existed at all, it was extremely rare. It was predicted to be the heaviest of the quarks, but even if it did turn, it would only last a trillion a second.
Finding the top quark was really very difficult. We had to create thousands of billions of these collisions in order to finally detect a few dozen of them that produced top quarks.
As if creating the collisions wasn't hard enough, analyzing the fleeting fragments of reality they produced depended on the perfect performance of the most intricate scientific instruments ever built, the collision detectors.
This is one of the pieces of the detector. It's a big chamber that has very tiny wires running across it. It's full of gas, and as particles come out of the collision point, they leave tiny traces of ions that are picked up by these wires. And then you can reconstruct the actual trajectory of each of the particles as they emerge from the collision point. And this helped us tremendously. So this is a piece of history, and we have it here shown as one of the most magnificent pieces of apparatus that have helped us to decode reality.
Jacobo's team searched for the top quark for 4 years. His handwritten diary recalled electrospinning emissions. Over 6 million collisions, but still no top quark. And one day, everyone came together for a meeting.
This is a room where, after years and years of taking data, we finally realized we had discovered a new particle. We had discovered the top quark. January 21st, 1995. The first reaction from the whole room was silence. And then we broke into applause. Everybody was in disbelief because it all had come together after so many years of hard work, so many years of searches through many accelerators. We finally had it here. And we were convinced beyond any doubt that this was going to become part of reality. The top quark was here to exist, to stay, and to be part of the history of scientific discoveries. So the feeling was ecstasy, pure ecstasy. We all feel, I think, that this is our baby. It's the particle that we unveiled, and now we're studying and taking care of.
With the discovery of the top quark, physicists are close to understanding one of the greatest mysteries of reality, what it's all made of. They finally tamed the particle zoo into an elegant set of unbreakable bits called the Standard Model of Elementary Particles. 6 quarks, their 6 electron cousins, the leptons, and 4 particles that carry force. Together, these 16 pieces make up the world we see around us. It's an amazing achievement to have drilled down through the visible world to the bottom layer of reality itself. But there's a puzzle at the heart of this picture.
You like the fact that you're seeing it. You like the fact that you can explain how these characters interact with each other and who they are and what their basic properties are. But then you don't know why there are so many. And you want to think, what drives those numbers? What's so magical about 6 quarks? What's so magical about 6 leptons? Why 6?
Every time in history where we've had a really complicated description of reality, someone has come along and unified this into something beautifully elegant. And right now, I think our best understanding of physics, again, is just a bit too complicated to be the real deal.
While particle physicists dream of simplicity, there's a whole other branch of physics that questions whether reality as we know it can even be said to exist at all. Welcome to the weird world of quantum reality, where nothing is quite as it seems. Here in Vienna, experimental physicist Anton Zeilinger is about to unlock the mysteries of the quantum world. He's going to perform a remarkable experiment that puts the very existence of reality into question. Known to physicists as the double-slit experiment, it's remarkable because it reveals two astonishing paradoxes about the nature of reality that no one can fully explain.
I'm now showing you the two-slit experiment, which contains one of the basic mysteries of quantum mechanics. It is very simple. We have a laser, we have a two-slit assembly where the light can only go through two slit openings, and we have an observation screen.
The experiment has one crucial feature. Zeilinger can control his laser beam so that it fires single particles of light, called photons, through the slits. Just single particles.
Let's do the experiment with the camera, which is able to detect individual photons. We have to cover it now because of the background light. Sven, can you help me?
As the laser fires single photons, some will pass through the slits, some will bounce off. Gradually, a pattern will emerge.
Now you see the photons arrive one by one at the camera. Here's one, here's one, here's one. So they really behave as mini bullets. What would you expect them to do at the double slit setup? We would expect some of them going through this slit, some going through this slit, so we would expect two stripes.
But what you get is something completely different.
I think he got away!
Even though only single photons of light are being fired through the slits, they don't create two lines. They mysteriously create three. According to physics, this pattern of multiple stripes is what you get when you shine a beam of light at the two slits, because when it's a beam, light behaves like a wave, creating a classic pattern of light and dark stripes. But it's totally incomprehensible how single particles of light can create this wave pattern.
There's a contradiction here.
Hello.
On the one hand,
What can
we
I
have
do for you?
individual particles which
I take it this
can
isn't purely
go
a
to
social
one slit
call.
only
Of
at a
course
time.
not. You're in
On the
trouble
other
and you need
hand,
my help.
we
No
have the
problem.
stripes which indicate that there are waves which go through both slits. How can something go through one slit and to both slits at the same time?
The idea that a single particle of light can somehow split in two and go through both slits at once goes against all the laws of nature that we know.
From a basic intuitive point of view, this is not possible to understand if you stick to a picture of reality as we are used in everyday life.
Over the last 2 decades, Zeilinger and his colleagues have tested quantum theory to its limits. They've even proved that it's not just photons that behave strangely, but atoms and molecules too. You might ask, why can't we observe quantum reality? But this is where things get even more weird. If you put detectors by the slits, the mysterious behavior stops. The photons behave just like bullets. Take the detectors away, the multiple stripes mysteriously reappear. So what's going on? Rather astonishingly, it seems that we can change the way reality behaves just by looking at it. But this also means that reality has a secret life of its own.
We know what the particle is doing at the source when it is created, we know what it is doing at the detector when it is registered, but we do not know what it is doing in between. We cannot describe that with our everyday language.
If you're finding this hard to get your head around, then don't worry, you're in good company. The paradoxes of quantum theory drove even Albert Einstein to despair.
Well, there's a famous story from the history of physics. One day, Albert Einstein asked his friend Niels Bohr, a Danish physicist, "Do you really believe that the moon is not there when nobody looks?" And Bohr's answer was, "Can you prove to me the opposite?" Can you prove to me that the moon is there when nobody knows? This is not possible.
For more than 70 years, physicists have debated what quantum theory means for reality. Zeilinger's detective work may yet lead us to an answer.
So quantum physics is an exciting theory because it is extremely precise, it is mathematically beautiful, it describes everything. It just doesn't make sense.
So reality turns out to be stranger than we ever imagined. Everything has the power to be in two places at once, but we'll never see it. It's all very peculiar. But you'd be wrong to think you can ignore it, because quantum reality might be about to change our lives in a big way. Here at MIT is a physicist who sees in reality's strange behavior enormous power and opportunity. Seth Lloyd is aiming to revolutionize our lives with a new class of computers, like nothing the world has ever seen.
This is a quantum computer. It actually happens to be the best and most powerful quantum computer of its kind in the world. It runs on superconducting circuits that are cooled to within a few thousandths of a degree of absolute zero. And it contains in its guts a little tiny bit where a current going around like this represents a 0, and a current going around like that represents a 1, and currents going once represent 0 and 1 at the same time. And that's what's going on in here at the moment.
Whereas a normal computer bit can only represent a 0 or a 1, a quantum computer bit can be 0 and 1 at the same time. Link these multitasking bits together, and they can do vast numbers of calculations simultaneously, opening up new worlds of possibility.
Quantum mechanics is weird, and quantum computers use quantum weirdness to process information in ways that ordinary classical computers could never even comprehend or do it. As a result, even a tiny quantum computer with a few hundred quantum bits in it could be more powerful than a classical computer the size of the whole universe.
What's unique and impressive about Seth's engineering of the quantum world is that for the first time ever, he's opening up a line of communication between our reality and quantum reality.
Quantum bits are very small, really teeny, cannot see it through the naked eye, cannot see it through a microscope. But you need this whole room full of equipment to basically tickle this quantum bit and get information from our human scale down to this extremely microscopic scale where quantum bits actually live. And if you talk to them just right and massage them till they're happy enough, then you can get them to do what you want.
Sounds easy. But Seth has to overcome the most mysterious rule of reality. The fact that his quantum bits stop being able to do two things at once as soon as he tries to observe them. The quantumness of reality is apparently very sensitive.
This is actually one of the main problems with building large-scale quantum computers, because it doesn't take just me or you to look at something and make the computer fail. It can just be some passing electron wandering around, bounces off this little superconducting loop and says, whoa, the electrons in there are going around like that. That's enough to mess up your quantum computation.
Seth clearly faces some of the most difficult technical challenges science has ever known. But if he overcomes them, quantum computing has a huge potential to change our world.
My favorite use for quantum computers is to use them to understand the weird features of the universe. Classical computers, let's face it, they kind of think the way we do. They're not so good for understanding quantum mechanics. If we're ever really to understand how this quantum universe works at bottom, we need quantum computers to serve as our intuition for understanding the fundamental workings of the universe.
Seth's computer depends on things being in two places at once for its power. But there's a growing number of physicists who don't believe that this is what reality is really like at all. They think the answer to this puzzle lies beyond our universe.
Just checking to see whether reality is still there.
Max Tegmark is a cosmologist. He studied the greatest mysteries of the universe from the Big Bang to black holes. When it comes to explaining how reality works, He draws his inspiration from one of the most bewildering ideas in cosmology: parallel worlds. This theory says that beyond the edges of our universe, there are an infinite number of other universes. It sounds like the stuff of science fiction, that there's another you living more than a trillion light years away. But it's not the only version of this theory. Max thinks that parallel worlds don't just exist beyond our universe. They're here, millimeters away, and they're being created all the time.
I'm here right now, but there are many different Maxes in parallel universes doing completely different things. Some branched off from this universe very recently and might look exactly the same, except they put on a different shirt. Other Maxes may have never moved to the US in the first place, or never been born.
This vision of reality says that any time we go to work, there'll be another universe where we stay at home. There are universes where we all have different careers. There are also universes where we don't even exist. It's a disturbing idea, developed in the 1950s, but for Max, it's the best and only solution to the paradox at the heart of quantum reality.
The big problem with quantum mechanics is that the little particles that we're all made out of can be in multiple places at once. Yet I'm made of little particles, and you never see me being in two places at once, so what's going on here?
Max thinks that the maths of quantum theory is telling us something remarkable.
So whenever the equations say that this tennis ball is in many different places at once, what that really means is that our reality is branched out into multiple universes, and in each one, the ball is in a definite place.
According to this theory, when the photon of light faces two slits, it doesn't split in two, it splits the world in two. Every photon in the double-slit experiment creates a new parallel world. Which means what we think of as reality is just one of an infinite number of realities, each one slightly different from the next. However strange this theory sounds, Max believes that you have to accept reality as you find it.
Like if I get a parking ticket, there's always a parallel universe where I didn't. On the other hand, there's yet another universe where my car was stolen. So you win some, you lose some. But seriously, my job as a scientist isn't to tell the universe how to conform to my preconceptions of how it should be, but how to look at the universe and figure out how it really works.
It seems that whatever our senses are telling us about reality, we only get to experience a fraction of what's really going on.
Take it as it comes, you know. We've been humiliated before about the vast universe, since Copernicus, since the discovery of the distant galaxies, the Big Bang. This is another sort of humiliation, or we're finding that our ordinary sensing of the world is so very partial. We only see tiny averages of the.
I refuse to let myself be limited. I walk the walk of a man who isn't afraid to wear floral.
Of this very rich structure.
Quantum reality is about the strangest discovery that physics has ever made, but it's also fantastically powerful. Not only has it helped create our modern computer age, but it's helped us to understand all kinds of phenomena, from the shining of stars to the color of gold. It's changed our relationship to reality forever, philosophically and practically. But that relationship might be about to change again. In the last few decades, an astonishing new idea has been taking shape, an extraordinary vision of what reality might be that combines every field of physics, from quantum to the Big Bang. If it's true, it will trigger a bigger change in thinking about reality than anything we've seen. And it all began one day in San Francisco. Professor Lenny Susskind is one of America's most eminent theoretical physicists. In 1981, he was developing a theory about how matter was made out of springs, when a local entrepreneur asked him to host a small private science conference. Susskind invited a British cosmologist to give a talk. It was Stephen Hawking, and the lecture he gave about black holes was to change the course of Lenny's life.
That's where Stephen dropped the bombshell and left us so confused for 20 years.
At the time, Stephen Hawking was the preeminent scholar working on black holes, and he'd achieved amazing insights into the inner workings of these mysterious objects. Black holes are the most terrifying places in the universe. Created when a giant star dies, at their dark hearts is a point of infinite gravity, so powerful nothing can escape it, not even light. Lenny was expecting to learn something interesting about black holes. What he didn't expect was for Hawking's new theory to challenge everything he knew about reality.
I had absolutely no idea at the time that this was going to change my life for the next 20 years.
Anything you need, boss.
Stephen began to talk about black holes and told us a story which seemed so crazy and so strange, it seemed absolutely wildly impossible that black holes would violate all the principles of physics that we knew.
Hawking's revelation was that black holes, instead of lasting forever, as everyone thought, eventually disappear, leaving no trace of anything, including something physicists consider a fundamental part of reality: information.
If information was lost in ordinary circumstances in this room, that would be bad, because then all kinds of weird stuff would start happening. Like, the arrow of time could start going backwards, clocks might not work, we all might disappear, like that. The fact that information is conserved in ordinary physics is at the very basics of physical law.
Today, information is as important a part of reality as matter and energy. Everything physical contains information. It's the description of what something is, its color, its mass, its location, and crucially, like energy, information can never be destroyed.
I just knew or felt deep in my gut that Stephen had to be wrong. That lecture set me on a mission, you bet, and that mission was to reconcile the two competing and conflicting points of view about black holes, that they eat information and evaporate, but information is not allowed to be lost.
As Lenny drove home that night, he knew his first task was to learn as much about his subject as possible: mysterious and terrifying black holes. Every black hole has a boundary known as the event horizon. It's the point of no return. If you pass it, you'll never escape the black hole's gravitational pull.
You get too close to a black hole, you're done. You get sucked into it, nothing can come out. Not even your screams, not even your radio transmission for help, nothing.
If anything passes the event horizon, it takes its information with it. Lenny had to find some way for black holes to evaporate without destroying the information inside them. But the physics of black holes is so complicated that he wrestled with the problem for the next 12 years.
Man, y'all be wanting to know too fucking much.
Then in 1993, one fine day in Stanford, Lenny wandered into the physics department and saw something that gave him an amazing insight into what the true nature of reality might be.
Y'all be too busy trying to know too much shit. Y'all can play with that shit all y'all want. I'll give me some sleep now. I'm gonna leave y'all with this.
Nope, that's fine.
Nope. I ain't gonna leave y'all with that because I might end up kicking my shit clean off the internet. I holla.